Chapter 15 is called Unexpected Help. Chris and Trevor both sat at the table with their heads held in their hands. David had reported all that Kazima had said, and nobody had spoken since. They sat exhausted and aimless, with no leader to tell them what to do, all three of them praying that one of the others would have some quick fix solution to put things back exactly as they were before. The only noise that cut through the silence was the cheerful humming coming from Amy in the corner as she played with a Rubik's Cube. Eventually, David spoke. "The way I see things," he said, "we're going to struggle to keep the ARC project going without Kazima's leadership. After the town fair, we will need to have a difficult chat about whether it's going to have any future at all." The two boys nodded solemnly in agreement. "In the meantime, though, we have the beginning of a plan that could sort Mr. Torrance out once and for all. Sure, it'll be harder to put into action with just the three of us, but not impossible. We have all the info Trevor gathered as a starting point, and we know that we're going to sabotage Mr. Torrance's entry in the baking competition. So we need to get the cake without being detected and ensure that during the taste test, Mr. Torrance suffers maximum ridicule. We're -1, but we can still do this, guys." Perhaps subconsciously, David found himself slowly slipping into the leadership role that Kazima had abandoned. He hadn't been planning to rouse the troops as such with his little speech, more to try and paint things as being not quite as hopeless as they might have initially seemed. As he looked at his two friends, though, his words seemed to have little impact. They both looked as glum as they were before he'd started speaking. Neither showed any inclination of wanting to say anything. Without their bold shikra, they were maybe wanting to call it quits right away. Before David had a chance to find out what his friends were thinking, he was distracted by a loud, forceful knock on the headquarters door. David, Chris, and Trevor all exchanged nervous looks, each hoping that one of the others may know of somebody else they should be expecting. It took a moment for anyone to move out their seats, perhaps out of fear of who it could be. It certainly wouldn't have been Kazima. If she'd had a change of heart, she would have walked straight in. Could it have been her mum, though? Certainly, David never found out exactly how much information her mum had managed to find out. It was very possible that if she knew about the project, she had come to give them all a piece of her mind. Worse, perhaps the Jessops or the police had made the link. If so, they were all in serious trouble. Eventually, David made his way towards the door, and with a trembling hand, he edged it open. He was completely unprepared for the figure who would greet him on the other side. "Can I come in?" asked Becky, who stood alone, without the mocking sneer the boys were used to seeing spread across her face. Against his better judgment, David had let Becky come inside. Chris and Trevor clearly both felt very uncomfortable in her presence. This was their safe space, and it was being trespassed by the person who had caused them more misery than anyone else in the world. They couldn't bring themselves to look at her or acknowledge her in any way. Politeness and courtesy weren't gestures required for unwelcome guests. They hoped that she would take the hint and leave again right away. David, too, was unhappy with this unwelcome intruder. "What do you want, Becky?" he asked bluntly, getting straight to the point to help speed up her exit. Becky, initially ignoring David's question, caught Amy's eye and gave her a warm smile. "Hi, I'm Becky. You must be Amy," she said before sitting beside Chris's sister. "Do you need a hand with that? I love these things." She outstretched her hand and Amy passed her the cube. The little girl immediately fascinated by how quickly and purposefully Becky began working the puzzle. As she played with it, she looked towards David and finally addressed his question. "I'm here to offer my help," she said. Sensing a trap, David proceeded with caution. "What makes you think that we would need any help? And even if we did, why would we want to accept it from someone like you?" Becky had clearly already given her response to this question some thought. "I know what you guys have been doing," she said. "I know about what happened to Kazima at the Jessops farm. I know why the pencil was thrown at Mr. Torrance, and I know what you've got planned for him at the town fair. I want revenge on that teacher more than anyone. Let me help bring him down." Chris and Trevor, realizing that Becky wasn't posing them a direct threat, were finally looking and listening. Had Becky turned in their direction at the other end of the table, though, she would have seen the contempt in their glares. How Becky had found out all this information was obviously a huge concern. If she knew their plans, then who else did? Also, how did she know where to find them all? She had a lot of answering to do and was going to have to work a lot harder to win their favour. I know I've been pretty rough to you guys over the years, and I'm not expecting forgiveness, Becky continued, all this while still fiddling with Amy's Rubik's Cube. I've been giving my behaviour a bit of thought. I don't really know why I keep saying and doing all these things, but it makes people laugh. I know it doesn't make you guys laugh, obviously, but I think that's why I keep doing it. It helps get me friends. I know it's wrong, and honestly, I'm going to stop. I'm going to try and stop doing it. I'm sorry. The boys let Becky's words sink in for a moment, all quite taken aback by her apparent honesty. In the end, it was Chris that broke the silence. The children who laugh, your posse of mates, they're not your friends, he said matter-of-factly. They just know that if they stop laughing, they might be next. Now it was Becky who avoided eye contact. For a few moments, she gave the puzzle her full attention, and when she did speak, it wasn't to address Chris's comments. Her silence on the matter perhaps confirming its truth. Your plan for Mr. Torrance is decent, she said, but it has the potential to have a very limited impact. He bakes something, the Prime Minister tastes it and doesn't like it. Mr. Torrance is a bit embarrassed, fair enough, but does anything really change? If your plan is to work, his cake is going to have to be horrifically bad. Not only that, but if you really want to succeed, to make it onto the national news, the front pages, then the Prime Minister's reaction is going to have to be really extreme. The media will be at the fair in force, so if the moment's right, they'll capture it and it'll get the coverage it deserves. Everybody will need to have a clear role to make this work. We must be well coordinated and play to everybody's strengths. I'm more than happy to get my hands dirty, to do what needs to be done. Not only that, but I've got the perfect recipe to help make sure that Mr. Torrance's cake is a bake to remember. I can get it taken care of. Oh, and one more thing. Did you guys see the Prime Minister in yesterday's news? Scrapping the one thing going on in this country that actually helps children out for a change? Well, the way I see it is, we have an opportunity in front of us that can't be missed. Sure, tasting Mr. Torrance's baking will be a bit embarrassing for the Prime Minister too by proxy, but we need to take this chance to help him rethink his plans for the youth card. David, I have plans for your role at the fair, which could do just that. As Becky finally finished speaking, she handed Amy the completed Rubik's Cube back, who stared at it in amazement. The boys too were flabbergasted. For Becky to have the cheek to barge into their headquarters after all she had made them endure, then presume to include herself in their plans, had taken some nerve. At the same time, though, they couldn't help but be drawn to the thoroughness and creativity of her logic, which was quite unlike anything the rest of them had been able to come up with, including Kazima. Each of the boys was quietly impressed by the girl who could barely read or write, but yet was capable of coordinating multi-layered plans and solving a Rubik's Cube all in under 2 minutes. David looked to Chris and Trevor to try and gauge what they were thinking. They looked as conflicted as he felt. Becky, could you wait outside for a minute? The rest of us need to talk this through. Sure, Becky shrugged as she headed towards the door. Once the door had been closed behind her, it was Trevor who spoke first. I can't work with her, he blurted out. I can't just forget all the things she said. I can't put all that behind me. I just can't. Poor Trevor looked visibly upset. Out of the three of them, he'd probably been the worst treated at the hands of Becky. Certainly, he was the one who always seemed the most defenceless, unable to brush off the cruel comments the way the others could. I feel the same, Chris agreed. It's not as bad for you, David. You've not had to put up with it for as long as me and Trevor have. I just don't think I could ever trust her. And how are you supposed to work with someone you can't trust? I hear what you're both saying, said David. And right up to that last minute there, I was thinking exactly the same thing. It's what she said about the youth card, though. Did you two know about that? I certainly didn't. If that's true, though, have you thought about what that would be like? All of our families are really hard up. Would they be happy to fork out for bus fares every time you wanted to go anywhere? I know mine wouldn't. I'd be stuck at home. Also, have you thought about what that might mean for the bus drivers? If people aren't using the buses anymore, there won't be as many drivers. Kazima's mum might be out of her job. Becky's right. We need to stop this from happening. We need to get the Prime Minister too, and it'll take more than just the three of us to get him and Mr. Torrance at once. I don't trust Becky either, but I want to know what she's planning. If it's sounding good, we'll need her help for this one time. Then we'll go our separate ways. What do you think? Chris and Trevor both looked at each other, finding it hard to take fault with David's point of view. They both nodded reluctantly. All right, Trevor said, but it is just for this one time. And we're doing it for Kazima. David smiled, then walked towards the door to let Becky in. So, tell us more about what we've got in store for the Prime Minister. And that's the end of the chapter. See you again soon. Bye.